We're all good? On the 1st of February, I set 3 world records rowing across the Atlantic Ocean, aged 21. I had just traveled just under 4,500 miles in 97 days, 9 hours, and 21 minutes. It was the most incredible but mentally challenging thing I've ever had the chance to do so far in my life, but I had absolutely no idea how hard it would be coming home. My crossing was an experience of many, many firsts, but probably most surprisingly, I got to see my first fish in the ocean. And I also had to get over my fear of water and swimming, which arguably I should have done before I left, because every other day you have to get in the water to clean the underside of the boat. It soon became one of my favorite times of the day, and especially if I got to see something swim by on those calmer days. But the water wasn't always a friend. I had some particularly stormy weather that gave me a capsize and left me badly swollen and bruised, but it also broke my primary phone, which had all of my music, podcasts, and audiobooks on, meaning I had the last 2 months of my completely isolated crossing in complete silence. Yet every single day I was at sea, I felt so lucky to be there, knowing I was crossing the world's second largest ocean using the power in my legs. And I got to see the world properly, and it was so pretty. And then, after 97 long but very fulfilling days, I hit land as a 3-time world record holder. I was the first woman to ever row from mainland Europe to mainland South America, the youngest woman to solo row across any ocean, and the youngest person to row this route by, he was more than double my age. And I got to land, and on my crossing, I had become very good at becoming kinder to myself. Ocean rowing is the first sport I've ever done in my life that is so weather dependent. If you're in a rowing boat and the weather's against you and it's strong, it really doesn't matter how strong you are, you're going to go with the weather. And so I had to become better at setting realistic goals and then being okay when I couldn't meet them. And on some days say, I tried really hard and I couldn't do it, but try again tomorrow. And that might sound like a really small change to do, but it was completely new to me. And instead of jumping to the conclusion that I'm not good or fast or strong or clever enough. And it made it a lot easier to be around myself. And when you're the only person nearby, that's absolutely essential. It also made it easier to then push myself more. I had some horrendous weather, and I had days of going backwards, you row backwards, but knowing I was actually losing progress. And I absolutely loved it. But then I hit land, and I got to talk to and hug and see the people that I'd missed so much. And one of the first feelings I felt was one of disappointment in myself, because I'd missed out on taking the outright speed record by less than a day. And it completely flooded my mind, and it really tainted my finish as more of a dissatisfying moment than a joyous one. All I could do was think about all of the what-ifs and if-onlys you could imagine. What if I'd left a few days earlier in that better weather? Or if only I chose to go this way around instead of the other way around? Or what if I just rowed half an hour more that one day? And that was a very hard feeling to go through, because I'd worked so hard to get to land, and that was my only goal. And then I got there, and that wasn't enough anymore. And it took me less than an hour of being back on land to lose all of that self-kindness I had worked so hard to be better at. I reverted right back into who I was before I left, when I was so goal-oriented that the outcome was all that mattered. Suddenly, it didn't matter to me that I had those bad weather conditions that had me ready to call the Coast Guard if I got blown within 50 meters of the cliffs of the Canaries. It didn't matter that I had weather that had me zigzagging through the water in any semi-helpful direction I could manage, days when I was losing an entire day of progress in a total of 3 hours of rest, despite using my sea anchor, days when I was physically exhausting myself to stay exactly where I was. And I had that every day for the first 35 days. I remember calling my coach and having to reassure him and say, I've got everything under control. Because everybody around, well, not around me, everybody on land was starting to think that this challenge was too ambitious, and it was too dangerous, it was taking too long, and I'd run out of food if I continued. Pre-departure, I was aiming to finish within 60 days. I took 90 days of food just in case. It took me 97 days. And then I got there, and suddenly none of those problems mattered anymore, because I'd lost something that wasn't even a race, something that I hadn't even thought of 6 months prior to do. And initially, upon my return, I was really trying. I had days when I would let my body recover, and I would eat and eat, and then one day it just all stopped. I stopped eating for days at a time because I started being so constantly overwhelmed that I was just sick. I couldn't sleep through the night, even with sleeping medication, because on my row, I never slept for more than an hour and a half, and that was on a good day, because you learn to wake up to the slightest change in water hitting the boat or of the boat rocking. I remember I went for my first run the morning after I finished, and I was so looking forward to running. I used to be a really good runner. I loved running long distance, and it was something I was really looking forward to doing when I got back. And I could run 1.5 kilometers because I'd lost the muscle that's responsible for how your foot hits the floor and pushes you along, that lets you walk, run, and jump, because I hadn't been able to step more than 3 steps in 3 months. And that really wasn't helped, actually, when I was bitten by a barracuda just a week away from the finish, and it left 35 bite marks on my foot that bled for nearly a month. And people came up to me and told me they hoped their daughters grew up to be like me, because I'd done this one thing. And people called me driven and determined, and I thought if any of them saw me in the months after I'd finished, they would have changed their minds, because I coped so badly with coming home. Something that I wasn't prepared, I didn't even consider was going to be a challenge, because if you're going to struggle with either being alone at sea for nearly 100 days or living the life that you used to live, surely it should be the former. Within a week of finishing, I was back here, back at uni, finishing my degree in physics, and back to normal training, and it was like nothing had happened, even though every time I stood still, I would fall over because I hadn't got my land legs back, or that I couldn't even stomach a full meal. And it took me more than half a year to sleep through the night. Today, I have been on land 9 months, and I have become a bit better at showing myself a similar kind of logical reflection I had during my crossing. I've tried to see every day of being home as a win, even if I've had failures. And I think that this is the part of extreme adventure that is really rarely spoken about, the coming home. And I think it's also the part to a lot of our triumphs that goes unspoken. We all train and work so hard to get to where we want, whether you're graduating, or you've just got a promotion at work, or you're training for your first marathon. You enjoy the chase, and then you get there, and then it's just over. And that slump can be really difficult to go through. Some days, I'm the girl that set world records rowing across the Atlantic. And some days, I'm just trying to adjust to my new career in the British Army. But absolutely everything has its own challenges, and they all really matter. And I think that we should talk about this more. Thank you.